I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Omni viewer, and my ears are still ringing because I just got back from a concert I never thought I'd actually get to go to. It turns out that my favorite band, Blue Oyster Cult, decided to play near me. This is a rare occurrence. I usually have spent my life in areas where really popular bands just don't go because they're too rural. Big bands like to go to urban areas. My places, I mean, every once in a while we got lucky. I lived in a particularly rural area where one year Weird Al Yankovic decided to drop by and do a concert. That was pretty cool. I got to go to that. But otherwise, I'd have to travel to see like Trans-Siberian Orchestra in concert or something. And, you know, I always figured that Blue Oyster Cult in particular, they knew what venues they would go to, and they weren't necessarily going to break with tradition and come anywhere near where I was. However, with the release of their most recent album, The Symbol Remains, I guess they've decided to expand their horizons because they came up to play in Bangor, Maine, and it was a mere 10 minutes away from where I was. So this was not an opportunity I was about to miss. Something impossible, or at least that I thought was impossible, had happened. And like I said, I just got back, got myself a t shirt and everything. And man, I've only been to a couple concerts in my life. I generally don't go to concerts necessarily, but man, this one was definitely worth it. Now, actually, Blue Oyster Cult was not the only group playing. The opening act, much to my surprise, was Grand Funk Railroad. You know, We're an American Band, The Loco-Motion, Bad Time to Be in Love. You know their songs. And like I said, it was a surprise, but not an unpleasant one. They had this interesting setup where the drummer was encased in a plexiglass cage, and I'm not entirely sure why. They took it down for Blue Oyster Cult, so I don't know, maybe it's just what they do for that band, but either way, it didn't affect the show at all in any negative way. It was loads of fun hearing these songs played live, and it was also the closest thing the show ever got to making some sort of socio-political statement. You can never tell when a band might get political. I knew Blue Oyster Cult wasn't going to get political, because they generally aren't political. The number of politically charged songs they've written can be counted on one hand after you've chopped off 3 fingers. And in a recent interview to promote The Symbol Remains, when Eric and Buck were asked how they were able to work together for so long and remain friends, one of the first things they said was, well, for starters, we don't talk politics. So I knew that wasn't going to happen with them. With other bands, you can never be sure, though, especially so close to a recent election. But fortunately, I can get behind what Grand Funk Railroad put forward. Their introduction to We're an American Band was basically to say that this was all about bringing people together, and it wasn't about telling you who or what side of the aisle was going to set you free, because no man can do that. And the lead singer, who also said on stage that he was a Christian, said right before getting into the song, he said, "Let me tell you something. I ain't no Democrat and I ain't no Republican. I'm an American." That's something I think a lot of us have forgotten these days, and the more people who can hear something like that and really consider what it means and hopefully be able to apply that to the way they live, the better, I say. So Grand Funk Railroad played their set. There was a brief intermission, And then it was time for the Oyster Boys. And man, they did not let up. It's amazing to think that they have been going for 50 years at this point. 50 years since their debut studio album. And even though, they've had different band members come in who are younger than Buck and Eric, they can still all rock really hard. I mean, yeah, to a certain degree, you can tell stuff like Eric Bloom was moving maybe a little bit slower. Not that he was lacking in energy, but I mean, even looking at concert DVDs from 10 or 15 years ago, you can tell he was higher energy then than he is today. But, you got to cut the guy a break. He is much older than he was back in the band's prime. And it didn't stop him. It didn't stop Buck. It didn't stop any of them. The song list was a good mix of old and new. Obviously, they were going to play some stuff from The Symbol Remains. I think it was Train True and That Was Me. Those are the only ones they played from that particular album on the night I went. They also did a lot from the first album, actually. They actually opened with Transmaniacon MC, which is the first song on the first album. And of course, they closed with Godzilla going right into Don't Fear the Reaper, as they always do. And you had the encore, which was Hot Rails to Hell and Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. And in between all of that, a good mix of songs from different eras. I noticed in particular they didn't necessarily have that many songs they were playing. Like, it wasn't one of those concerts where there were a whole slew of songs from every single album. But the songs they did play, they really milked. Like, they Blue Oyster Cult, I believe, is known as one of those bands that likes to extend the songs when they're played live. And boy, did they do that here. The longest song in the whole set was Then Came the Last Days of May, another first album song. Uh, that song on the album is 3.5 minutes, the studio version. But the live version that I saw, minimum of 10, possibly longer. They really, really stretched it out, and it never got old. Like, part of what made it so long was that Richie had a guitar solo about midway through. Lengthy one, too. Like 3 or 4 minutes long of him doing his own guitar solo. And once he was done, Buck did his own 3 or 4 minute long solo. And both of them sounded amazing. I mean, hot dang. Yeah, that was definitely the longest song of the whole set. But it never felt like it got old. That was the amazing thing. Even when the songs just kept going, they were still good to listen to. And you could tell that both Blue Oyster Cult and Grand Funk Railroad really did enjoy being up there and enjoy having people listen to them. A lot of bands haven't been able to tour these past couple of years, and I think that stretch where they weren't able to tour really made a lot of the older bands, especially, really appreciative of the people who come out to see them. It was also a very simple show, I must say. And I don't mean that in a bad way. These days, a lot of music acts feel like they've got to have gimmicks. And I'm not against gimmicks. I like gimmicks. A band with a good gimmick can really stand out. I mean, heck, I've been reviewing the albums of Victorious recently, and they're going for like a Saturday morning kaiju tokusatsu kind of aesthetic with their stuff. They wear this crazy Power Rangers armor on stage. They sing about dinosaurs and space ninjas. I mean, it's a gimmick, yes, but it's a fun gimmick. And the more popular certain bands with gimmicks get, the more elaborate their stage shows get. Because, they're usually inspired by the likes of Kiss and Alice Cooper and whatnot, those guys who had really over the top stage shows. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. but there is something to be said for a band that just lets the music speak for itself. And that's what this show really excelled at. Grand Funk Railroad and Blue Oyster Cult don't really have gimmicks. Blue Oyster Cult, sure, it was like the first band to employ lasers during the live shows. They didn't do that this time. I don't think they've really done it for a while. But really, other than the lighting effects, which is pretty standard, this was just about the music. It was about the band playing and just rocking out. And boy, did they. I know I'm kind of just circling around at this point, but I mean, what else can you say? These guys have been going at it for so long, both of the bands, and they're still able to really, really play. So, yeah, this was worth it. I never thought I'd get a chance to see Blue Oyster Cult live. Not only did I get the chance, I also got to see Grand Funk Railroad live, and neither of them disappointed. So, yeah, I am quite happy. And I would say if you guys ever get the chance, you should see them live too. Or if they're not your cup of tea, go see some kind of concert. Because there really is something special about those kind of concerts, you know? Anyway, just wanted to share this with you all. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.